Psychology is one of the most fascinating and dynamic fields of study. We often associate psychology with therapy or mental health, but it's so much more than that. At its core, psychology is the scientific exploration of how we think, feel, and act. It's about understanding human behavior, why we do the things we do, and how we can improve our lives and the lives of those around us. When we talk about psychology as a science, we are referring to a systematic approach to studying behavior, which means it's not just about guessing or theorizing. It's about using evidence and observation. Psychologists don't simply ask, "Why do people act the way they do?" and give a random answer. Instead, they employ scientific methods to uncover patterns and reasons behind human actions. Whether it's how we process information, the way our emotions influence us, or why we interact the way we do with others, psychology gives us tools to understand and improve human life. Now, you might wonder, what makes psychology a science, and how is it different from just common sense? For instance, it's not enough to say, people act out because they're angry. While that sounds simple, psychology digs deeper. Psychologists want to understand the root causes of anger, the physiological changes it triggers, and the psychological factors involved in that emotion. It's not about guessing, it's about proving, studying, and testing. Think of psychology like any other science, like physics or biology. These fields focus on concrete phenomena, like how objects move or how cells function. Psychology, on the other hand, focuses on the intangible, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Yet, just like the other sciences, psychology uses controlled methods to make sense of its subject matter. What's interesting about psychology is its interdisciplinary nature. It combines elements from biology, philosophy, sociology, and even anthropology. This unique mix allows us to view human behavior from a variety of perspectives. For example, some psychologists may focus on the biological aspects, looking at how brain structure and function influence behavior. Others might focus on the cognitive processes involved, like how we think and remember. There's also a social aspect to it, how our environment and the people around us shape our behavior. Psychology doesn't look at behavior in isolation. It looks at how all of these factors come together to create complex human actions. Over time, psychology has evolved from a philosophical inquiry into a full-fledged science. In the early days, psychology was deeply tied to philosophy. Think about how, centuries ago, philosophers like Plato and Aristotle pondered the nature of human existence. They asked questions like, what makes us who we are? And how does the mind work? These ancient philosophers were the first to recognize that human behavior was something worth studying. However, it wasn't until the 19th century that psychology began to truly establish itself as a distinct scientific discipline. One of the pioneers in this transition was Wilhelm Wundt, a German philosopher and physiologist. Wundt set up the first-ever psychology laboratory in 1879 in Leipzig, Germany, marking the beginning of psychology as an experimental science. He believed that, just like any other natural science, psychology could be studied by observing and measuring human behavior in controlled settings. From there, psychology quickly branched out into different schools of thought. Some psychologists, like the behaviorists, believed that the best way to study humans was by focusing solely on observable behavior, without trying to figure out what was happening inside the mind. They argued that behavior could be shaped and controlled through conditioning. On the other hand, thinkers like Sigmund Freud, with his theory of psychoanalysis, believed that to understand behavior, we needed to explore the unconscious mind. He suggested that hidden desires, repressed memories, and childhood experiences played a major role in shaping adult behavior. Freud's theories, though controversial, introduced us to the idea that much of our behavior happens below the surface of conscious awareness. Fast forward to today, and psychology is more advanced than ever. Modern psychologists utilize a vast array of techniques to study behavior, from brain scans and genetic research to surveys and experiments. And unlike other sciences, psychology can be applied to practically every aspect of our lives, whether it's in education, business, or even in our personal relationships. Psychology offers us insights that can improve both individual and collective well-being. But understanding human behavior isn't as straightforward as it may seem. Our emotions, thoughts, and actions are influenced by a mix of genetics, environment, and personal experience. Take depression, for example. Some people may have a genetic predisposition to it, while others may develop it due to environmental factors like stress or trauma. And for many people, a combination of both may be at play. That's why there are different schools of thought in psychology, each offering a different lens through which we can understand human behavior. The biological perspective, for example, looks at how our brains and nervous system influence what we do. It focuses on physical processes like neurotransmitters, hormones, and genetics. A psychologist working from this perspective might study how a lack of serotonin leads to mood disorders like depression or anxiety. In contrast, the cognitive perspective is more concerned with how we think. It focuses on the mental processes behind our actions, like how we perceive the world, remember information, and make decisions. Cognitive psychologists are interested in understanding how people process information and how these thought patterns influence our behavior. For example, someone with negative thinking patterns might be more prone to depression, while someone with a positive outlook might approach challenges more optimistically. Then, there's the behavioral perspective. This one emphasizes that all behaviors are learned through interactions with the environment. For example, B.F. Skinner, a key figure in behaviorism, showed that behavior could be shaped through rewards and punishments. This is why understanding the environment and the reinforcement mechanisms at play is so important when trying to modify behavior. The humanistic approach, on the other hand, focuses on personal growth, self-actualization, and the idea that humans have the innate potential to live fulfilling lives. Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow are key figures in this area, both of whom argued that people are driven by the need to reach their fullest potential. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for example, shows that humans have basic physiological needs that must be met before they can move on to higher levels of fulfillment, such as self-esteem and self-actualization. Another important perspective is the psychodynamic approach, which was developed by Sigmund Freud. This perspective emphasizes the role of the unconscious mind, early childhood experiences, and unresolved conflicts in shaping behavior. Psychodynamic therapists focus on understanding how past experiences, often repressed, influence current behavior. For instance, someone who was neglected as a child might have trouble forming relationships as an adult due to unresolved emotional conflicts. Finally, there's the sociocultural perspective, which considers how culture, social norms, and societal pressures influence behavior. This approach explores how our behavior is shaped by the group dynamics we're part of, as well as the values and expectations placed on us by society. Sociocultural psychologists might explore how gender, race, or socioeconomic status impacts the way people behave in different settings. Each of these perspectives offers valuable insights and often Modern psychologists combine multiple perspectives to form a more complete understanding of behavior. Psychology isn't about having one answer or one theory. It's about exploring the complexities of human nature from multiple angles to get a clearer picture of who we are and why we do what we do. In studying psychology, scientists often rely on the scientific method. This method involves making observations, forming hypotheses, conducting experiments, and analyzing data. It's a process that helps ensure findings are valid, reliable, and unbiased. Psychologists use the scientific method to test their theories and gather evidence to support or refute their ideas. For example, let's say a psychologist wants to study how stress affects memory. They might start by observing how stressed people perform on memory tests, form a hypothesis about the relationship between stress and memory recall, and then conduct an experiment to test their theory. They would carefully collect data, analyze the results, and draw conclusions based on the evidence they gathered. By using the scientific method, psychologists are able to establish cause and effect relationships and build a body of knowledge that can be applied in real-world settings. They can determine, for example, whether a certain therapy technique helps alleviate symptoms of anxiety, or whether a particular classroom environment leads to better learning outcomes for students. As we move forward, we'll take a deeper look at the specific methods used in psychological research, such as experiments, observational studies, surveys, and case studies. Each method has its strengths and weaknesses, and understanding how to design and interpret research is essential for anyone interested in the field. The exciting part about psychology is that there's always something new to learn. As research techniques improve and our understanding of the brain and behavior deepens, we continue to uncover new insights into human nature. And the more we learn, the better equipped we are to solve real-world problems, from mental health issues to improving educational systems, workplace environments, and social policies. In this ongoing journey of discovery, psychology will remain an essential science for understanding and improving the human experience. Whether it's helping someone through a tough time, designing a better classroom curriculum, or figuring out how to work more effectively in teams, the knowledge gained through psychology has the power to transform lives.